What's up, Yap Squad, and welcome back to the Yap Sesh podcast. My name is Sawyer, and I'm here with my co host Brooke, and we are Yap Sesh, a fangirl podcast dedicated to discussing all things fandom and nerdy, and we hope to share the experiences of women and queer fans everywhere. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our YouTube channel, and make sure to subscribe and follow so you never miss an episode. How you doing, Brooke?
I'm good, except I realized that I got like honey on my sweater as you were doing our little intro. Because this is maybe a weird Maryland thing. If you know anything about Maryland, you know that we love Old Bay, and my favorite flavor of like wings, like for a wing sauce, is to do honey and Old Bay.
Okay.
And sometimes I'll put it on like my chicken tenders too, and that's what I did. And I got some on my sweater, and now it's sticky. But otherwise, doing great. Already on a great tangent this afternoon.
Amazing.
How are you?
I'm okay. I'm in my famous era. I don't know what's going on this week. I have had not so great a week, but the internet has had a field day with my face and my videos, and you know what? All press is good press, so we're just gonna roll with it. But
It's that danger hair.
the danger there. I need a t-shirt. I tweeted about this the other day. There's two things that I've been called in my like career as a content creator that I need on a t-shirt. One is danger hair. That's a new one. And then the other one was last year was the demagogue of the queer agenda. Like that's awesome. I want to be the demagogue of the sure. Put that on a slap that on a t-shirt. I will wear
Can we
that
make that part of
everywhere.
our future Yap Sesh merch?
Yeah, tell us guys if you would wear a shirt that says demagogue of the queer agenda. Like, that
It's
sounds
so good.
awesome. That's supposed to be an insult? I don't know. But yeah, do we have any updates? I don't think so.
Um, nothing crazy. We do have a Discord server now.
That's
We would love if you could join. For access, all you need to do is join our $1 tier on Patreon. Just $1. You can pay us more if you want to get more perks like early episodes released on Patreon that are 99% unedited. Really, the 1% is just if we happen to, I don't know, talk some shit and don't want that public. Oops. But anyway, you can join our Discord for that $1 Patreon tier. And we are going to be doing like watch parties in there. And we're going to have, you'll be like first priority in there for any listener questions that we answer on the pod. And maybe some other fun stuff like game nights and things. So we're still workshopping.
all good things. Don't forget to check us out on all our other socials as well, and shoot us an email if you have any requests. Again, yapseshpod@gmail.com. Yep, yapseshpod@gmail.com.
Yeah, send us I want to read emails. I don't know why it feels like such a podcast thing to be like sent an email. Like it's cool to get like a reply on Twitter, like a DM, but like I want an email, you know? It just feels like nostalgic
Yeah.
for some
Um,
reason.
But anyways, we have a fantastic episode for you guys today. So let us bring in our guest and we'll get yapping.
Okay.
Hello there. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Oh
How's
my
it
gosh,
going?
I'm so excited to be here. I was telling you guys before we started recording, literally all I do every day, all day, all the time, 24/7, 365 is yap. So this is the podcast for me. I'm so excited.
We are so excited to have you. We have been trying to get you on the pod for a
Yes,
while now, and you are also a listener of the pod, aren't you?
I am. Yes.
Which is
Yay.
amazing. Thank you. But would you like to introduce yourself for everybody?
Oh my gosh, sure. I'll do my little intro that I do in my videos. Hi, or hello there. My name is Poppy. I'm a Star Wars and Marvel content creator and collector, and I do some other stuff as well, but that's mostly it. That's me.
Yes. And
Yeah.
you have been popping off on Instagram lately, I've seen, which
A
is
little bit, yeah. I kind of transitioned there May of this year. I've been doing TikTok for about 4 years now, on and off,
mm,
which feels insane to say that it's been 4 years now. Um, I was I kind of started in the 2020 height of Star Wars era, and I was doing that, and then I recently transitioned over to Instagram, and I have loved that so, so much. The community over there has been amazing, and TikTok was kind of slowing down for a while, and I was seeing kind of less of my community that I'd built there. It was just kind of shadow ban after shadow ban. And then also just TikTok is such an interesting place with interesting people who are not always the nicest. And I have had a lot less of the not nice people over on Instagram. So it's been really fun to build to bring my old community from TikTok over there as well as build a new community. And that's been really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No complaints there. We are all in agreement that TikTok is not the app that it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will shout out to Threads though. I've been using
Oh my
Threads this
gosh,
week
yeah.
and I didn't even realize that there was such a community over there and I blew up on Threads immediately and then there's a lot of people that will immediately go over to your Instagram
Yep.
and I've had trouble growing on Instagram and I was like, "Damn, okay, like this is definitely a new avenue to explore, especially for people who are not comfortable using Twitter."
Yeah.
But anyway, we as I'm sure you know because you watch the pod, we always ask our guests first what their first fandom and their favorite fandom are. So you are up, my friend.
So, oh my gosh, it feels a little bit embarrassing to say in this day and age, but my first fandom and kind of introduction to fandom space was with Harry Potter. Um, I was 11 when I got into that, so I feel like that was a very kind of perfect age to be brought into that.
Mhm.
And I was super into that for a while, obviously, kind of fell out of love with that. I had a whole episode where I ripped down all my Harry Potter posters after reading J.K. Rowling's tweets once. They're still in a closet somewhere
Valid.
at
Real.
my dad's house. They're in a closet somewhere because I couldn't bring myself to throw them away at that point, and then I moved out, and they're sitting there. But it was a whole moment of their posters getting ripped down. It was a whole thing. But I think my favorite fandom, if it's not kind of very obvious, is Star Wars. Although recently I have fallen back in love with Marvel. I was a big Marvel girly for a while, and I kind of fell out of love with that because the fandom space was kind of rough for me for a little bit. And then some other stuff happened, and I just wasn't engaging with the content as much. But since Deadpool and Wolverine, I have just gone headfirst back into Marvel, and I'm so, so, so happy about that. So I think Star Wars and Marvel are my big two, but if I really had to pick, I would say Star Wars.
That's fair. We're
Yeah.
Star Wars
Yeah.
girlies in this house.
Yeah. Number one baby girl is in a little bit of trouble right now. Kind of in the doghouse.
Yeah.
Marvel's taking the front seat for me right now, but you know.
Totally fair.
Yeah. And how did you start creating content? I mean, you already said that you started at the height of Star Wars, like COVID. The beginning of
Yeah.
COVID, I think, was a lot of people. That was my beginning, and it was a lot of people's. And we did see quite the boom of Star Wars specific content on TikTok during that time. So, how did you get started making content?
So kind of funny story that I've talked about on my TikTok a little bit, is I hated Star Wars my entire life. I refused to watch it. I had a run-in with a Darth Maul, or not Darth Maul, it was a Vader. I had a run-in with a Darth Vader at a shopping mall when I was maybe 3 or 4. He was handing out Christmas cookies. I was scared shitless. Am I allowed to swear? I'm sorry.
Oh, please.
I talk like Deadpool. I have a filthy mouth. It's a problem.
No,
but,
you're good.
You're in the right fucking place right now, bestie.
Let's fucking go. Yeah. I scared absolutely shitless, and I asked my dad. I'm like, what was the deal with the scary guy with the cookies? Because I wanted a cookie, but that was fucking terrifying. He tells me the whole story of Star Wars, and I'm like, oh my god, he didn't tell me it was fake. And then goes, watch out, or Darth Vader will get you in your sleep.
Oh my god.
After that, I just refused to watch Star Wars. I was like, I hate it. I would cover my ears when the music came on. It was a whole thing for years. And then over quarantine, he was like, you're finally gonna watch it. And I was like, whatever, fine. I'm not gonna like it. Clearly I did. And I started kind of looking stuff up online about it, and that's how I kind of came to TikTok, and I saw other people making videos about it, and then I was like, well, maybe I'll talk about what I like, and then that has become my entire life now. And then not to be at like super fangirly, but I remember, Sawyer, when you used to do the like Star Wars biology videos, I was like, I never saw someone who was like me. I never saw another woman on the internet like getting really deep into lore stuff, and that was something that I loved so much about Star Wars, and that's why I started doing my Fact Friday videos, which is like a little series that I do. I like to say I do it every Friday. I don't do it every Friday. I need to be better about that. But that was why I started doing lore videos. Your Star Wars biology videos got me into that. And so that, I know, I was like not gonna get like all fangirly, but like a little bit.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's
Yeah.
always nice to hear that I've, done some good in this crazy
Oh my
fandom.
gosh. Oh my gosh, for sure. You were one of the first kind of creators that I saw, and I was like, I could do that. That's so cool. I love that. So you've definitely
Yeah.
kind of influenced and inspired my content. So.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah, of
why
course.
we're all here, and you make awesome content, and
Thank
I
you.
am thrilled that you're here, and we're You picked a really awesome topic, I will say. So, just a reminder for folks who may be new to the pod, we always let our guest pick our topic for the week, and I was super excited when Poppy came to me with her topic. So, would you like to introduce it for everybody?
Oh yes, let me see what the wording was that we actually picked for it, because I've been kind of floating this topic around in my mind for a while. I'm like, how do I say this? Because I'm like, I have an idea in my head, but I don't know what the actual words I'm using were. I think we landed on disability advocacy and resilience through fandom, which is something that I'm so unbelievably passionate about and so excited to talk about.
Yeah, and I always love when, as we've been going along, we've been doing this for a few months now, and as it gets more natural for us and we start to think about, we plan ahead what kind of guests we want to have on the show. Like, there are times where Brooke and I are like, gosh, we really hope that someone in particular will want to talk about something in
Yeah.
particular. And sometimes it just works out where we're all on the same wavelength about what we want to talk about. So
Mhm.
I'm really excited.
Aw.
And I feel like I have a lot to say about this
Yeah.
because recently, um,
Yeah.
but
I feel like recently sums up the kind of general feeling around
Mhm.
just what's happened recently.
yes.
Yeah.
So just a heads up, this may get a little heavy. We are going to talk about some personal struggles. If you have not already, please go check out our other episode with Brooke Fitzwater, where we talk about neurodivergence, especially as women in fandom. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that and other disabilities and representation and all those wonderful, wonderful things. And to start off, we're gonna start with the heavy hitters. I mean, does who wants to go first? Or what are some struggles that we've had with our disabilities, and how would you define your disability? Because I think that when you have a disability, your relationship to that is very unique and very individual to every person. Some people would even, some people with autism would even go as so far as to consider themselves not disabled. So, who wants to go first?
I can start. I feel like
Go
we're like
for it.
sharing in class. I just started my third semester of college, so it's the whole week has been like, why don't you introduce yourself and like share a little fun fact? Except this is like, let's share a little fun fact about our disabilities. um, I have a couple physical disabilities. Those impact kind of every element and aspect of my life, mostly my mobility and my ability to eat. Those have been the two biggest things. Um, but then because of that, those issues kind of impact everything else. It impacts your social life, it impacts your ability to do school, your hobbies, what your career might look like. Um, and so for me, I use mobility aids a lot, which can be kind of really weird for people to see. I describe my disability as dynamic, so I did a video about this. I did weirdly well on my Instagram, but some days I seem totally fine and like I'll go out and spin lightsabers, and that doesn't usually look disabled, doesn't like look
Mhm.
disabled to people. And then other days I use a wheelchair. So
Mhm.
it very much fluctuates, and that can be hard because it isn't the most predictable thing. But it's kind of all over the place for me. I describe it like whack-a-mole, where it's like you whack one issue down and then the next one pops up. Um, but I think most of my stuff is like mostly physical. I don't know if I'm neurodivergent. I don't. We don't know. We're not sure. All of my neurodivergent friends have clocked me and they're like, yes, and I'm like, thank you.
Time to take the
Yeah,
Radzar.
yeah. I'm sure you're right. No one else has confirmed that. No one with the credentials to confirm that has confirmed that. So I don't want to come on here and be like, oh yeah, that's me. I'm neurodivergent, and I don't want to kind of take on those labels and put myself in that space if I might
Mhm.
not belong there, and kind of claim that identity for myself if I'm not sure about that. But there's maybe something going on there as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair. I wanted
Yeah.
to like start with this topic or start with this question because I feel like there's still a lot of general knowledge about disabilities and like accessibility things that is not super common knowledge
Mhm.
because I still see like horror stories of people
Yeah.
that are disabled that rightfully have like the handicap things for their car and getting like berated by fucking people saying, "Why are you parking in this spot? You're clearly not disabled." And it's like, well, not every disability is
Is
visible.
visible.
And
Yeah.
like you said, Poppy, it's not always visible all the time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think there's lots of questions that people will be like, "Oh, well, you're in a wheelchair. How are you walking all of a sudden?" And it's like crazy that a large percentage of people that use mobility aids don't need them 24/7.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a lot of it, I think, has to do with how it's represented in the media, which
yep.
I'm sure we'll
Yeah.
get into.
Yeah.
But yeah, so disabilities are invisible illnesses. They can be learning disabilities or learning challenges, neurodivergency, and everything in between. So we're going to talk about mostly our like personal experiences, but any other anecdotes that we'll add in is hopefully going to help teach at least maybe a few people that are listening to this.
No, I definitely agree with that. And I think that there is like a sensationalization of disability in media as well. We always get like extreme examples or examples that are exaggerated for dramatic effect. And I think that something, especially when it comes to invisible disabilities, because I would probably describe my own relationship with autism as similar to you and your disabilities, Poppy, because
Yeah.
there are times where I'm going to be stimming in public or I'm going to have like an outburst that's very visible, very you can see that something is not going right in my brain, and that's translating into how I'm presenting myself publicly. Or maybe I am having a really bad sensory day and I'm wearing my like Jar Jar Binks sensory hat
Yeah.
and like something like that. And like, you know, I went into work with my Jar Jar Binks sensory hat the other day, and this grown woman was like, "Why are you wearing that?" And I was like, "You know what? It helps me think."
And
Like,
because
just
it's awesome.
it's awesome, right?
It's a Jar Jar
But
Binks hat. Don't you want a Jar Jar Binks hat? Like, oh my gosh, everyone needs a Jar Jar Binks hat.
true, exactly. But no, literally, it helps me think. It
Yeah.
helps me calm my brain down. And so, like, you know, there are times like that, but then there are times where, like, with the Acolyte being canceled, I am not vocalizing my feelings about that because I have a lot of like there's a lot of internal shame about how I'm feeling
Yeah.
about that. And there's also like it's really difficult. I've found, especially this week, I've tried really hard to level with people and get them to understand that this is like very, you know, a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, everybody can be a part of escapism." And it's like, "Yes, but I'm not saying that this is an escapism issue for me. I'm trying to explain to you that I am so ingrained within the context of this fictional world because that's how my brain works and that's like a safe space for my brain that it feels like I lost a friend."
Yeah.
Like it feels yes, it's fake, it's a TV show, and frankly, the characters that I loved had a mostly okay ending, but it feels like autistic people just grieve things differently, and, you know, it's like, that's the part that you don't see. You don't see when my brain gets trapped in its logic battle, and there's the other I'm just gonna go on a tangent here we go, but, um you know, the other thing with autism is it's like I know when I'm behaving a way that is caused by my disability, and I know that that's being perceived incorrectly. I often describe it as like one part of my brain is over here and the other part of my brain is over here, and they just cannot connect. You don't see that. So
Yeah.
that's why we're having this conversation because these are the conversations that help people be informed better. Because what's available, unfortunately, is usually not very accurate.
Yeah. My train of thought is gone. Hold on. One second. We're just I'm just gonna edit this part out. This is like the 1% that's edited out where I'm like, hold on, what's I gonna say?
Oh no, there will be a lot of this, don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally good. You're totally
Oh my
good.
gosh, I'm trying to remember what I was gonna say. I fear it might be gone. Yeah. Nope. I think it's gone.
Oh no.
There we go as well. There we go. There's a little maybe we can leave that in. Maybe we can leave that in because that's another thing that I think is also invisible is for me I have like a lot of cognitive issues that both stem from kind of brain fog within kind of some neurological issues that I have, as well as I have struggled for about a year and a half now to maintain proper nutrition. And with that just comes so many cognitive issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to consider myself a pretty smart person. I like to think that I'm pretty intelligent and smart. And just feeling my brain not being able to function like I know it should
Mhm.
is so difficult sometimes. Like even something as simple as that, people might be like, "Oh, you lost your train of thought." I'm like, "No, it was right there, and I know I had something
Mm-hmm.
like intelligent and important to say, and it's just I can't. It's there, and I can't retrieve it." And
Yep.
that like stuff like that, like things that happen every day, all the time, and no one
Mm-hmm.
ever sees that because I'm not like, "Oh, well, there was a moment where I had some cognitive like dysfunction." Oh, there we go. It's like you're not going to say that, but it happens all the time. You kind of when that's your reality, you always feel it, but no one else sees it. So you're sitting there and you're struggling silently and people then make these assumptions about you, and it's so hard because you want to be perceived the way that you feel internally, and it can feel so impossible to get people to see you the way that you actually are, or the way that you feel that you are, and
Mhm.
to almost make people understand you. It can feel like you're screaming, like, please understand me, please be patient, please be understanding. But then you also don't always, like, at least for me, I don't want to be a burden, and I don't want to scare people off with it, because confronting disability can be so uncomfortable for people. And I even get uncomfortable talking about it. And it can be really hard for me to even admit and say, like, oh, yeah, I'm disabled, because in some kind of internalized ableism way, for me, it almost feels like I'm giving up. And I'm like, well, no, I should be able to do that. If I try harder,
Mhm.
I should be able to, but I can't sometimes. And that can be frightening for me, and it can be frightening for other people. And it's uncomfortable to deal with. But I think talking about that and making space both for disabled people to talk about their experiences, but also for other people to see that and see what it's like, and to have a better understanding, helps build empathy and understanding, and is so important. Maybe
Yeah,
we won't edit that
I
out then.
it's that is something that I have struggled with my entire life, like memory and executive functioning. Like it's something that I have struggled with my entire life. I will, it's more than just putting my phone down and forgetting where I put it. It's forgetting to pay bills on time, forgetting that I had doctor's appointments, forgetting that I had important paperwork that I needed to fill out for XYZ. And it comes with it's even now knowing that there was nothing wrong with me growing up, that I had an actual learning disability that caused my brain to function this way.
Yeah.
There's still like a lot of shame involved, like having to try to explain to my teacher why I didn't do my homework, because not because I didn't want to do it, but because I totally forgot about it. It just left my brain. Or, even this week I had to email my manager at my job. I teach preschool, and I'm going back next week, and there's a bunch of like basic health and safety trainings and whatever that we have to do beforehand, and I didn't keep track of the due date of when it was due, and it was like one of those online test courses thing
Yeah.
that locks you out after a certain time. And I, like, as soon as when I went to log in, I was already locked out of it because I missed the deadline. And just having to email her and be like, I'm so sorry, like I was caught up in so many other things. But also, even if I wasn't caught up in other things, there was a very high chance that I was just going to forget about it because I did not have the reminder that I needed. And even I feel like it's even tough. Like, I will set reminders for myself, and even if I get the reminder, like, if I don't do it then there in the moment when I receive
Yep.
the reminder, I won't do it. And
Yeah.
it's awful because I try to make like accommodations like that for myself, and I still struggle. Like, I have a reminder on our like Amazon little Echo thing to clean the litter box every other day. But if I hear it and I am not prepared to get up and go do it, I just won't do it. And then the litter box won't get cleaned. And then my cat's really mad at me. And it's so many things. And it comes with like a lot of shame. And I try to give myself grace. Like, the thing that's helped me the most, at least like to justify things in my brain so I don't feel as shameful, I'm like, will this affect me 5 years from now? Like, me forgetting to fill out this one piece of paperwork, will it affect me in 5 years? Probably not. But it still sucks.
Yeah. It was so funny listening to that. I was like, every single word of that rings so true for me. And I was like, and like having these conversations, I think I don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over again, but it's genuinely so important. It can feel so comforting when you talk to other people who have experienced either the same things or similar things to you. And you're like, oh my gosh, I am not alone in this experience. This is not me having this hard experience versus the entire world who has it easy. Like, there are other people who experience the same things, and I'm not alone, and I'm not bad, and I'm not wrong for struggling with this. This is just something that I'm struggling with, and that I have to deal with, but I don't have to deal with it alone.
Mhm. Back to yapping.
Yes.
The next question that I wanted to ask is, at least I know for Sawyer and I, we are two people that were diagnosed with our respective neurodivergency disabilities late in life. So I don't know, Pavi, what your story is, but I wanted to ask, like, has anything gotten better, at least a little, just knowing, what's not, for lack of a nicer way to say this, like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. So I have a main diagnosis. I don't think I've said it today. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and so basically, the way that I explain that to people who have no idea what that is your whole body is basically made of connective tissue. It's the glue that holds everything together. Mine is absolute fucking shit. Does not work. Which I'll talk about again later because this plays a big part in what characters I like. But it's a genetic mutation. There are 13 subtypes. I have the most common type. But basically, nothing is held together correctly, which is the whack-a-mole issue, because it's like if nothing is held together correctly, everything can go wrong all the time. And so since I found that out, it was a lot easier to kind of figure out what the other issues were. But it also made me feel better about myself, my own experiences, kind of like what you guys were talking about, where it was like there wasn't something wrong. I mean, there was something wrong, but like it wasn't like a personal failure. When I was a kid, I could like never do stuff in PE, and I would get laughed at school for like not being able to run the mile or like passing out at school, and people thinking I was faking being injured all the time. There was a period in second and third grade where I had just so many injuries back to back to back to back to back, and people always thought I was faking and being like, this was not some personal failure. This was not some moral failure. I wasn't lying about being in pain all the time. Like there was and there is something wrong with me, and I know what that is now, and I know how to better take care of myself. In terms of other issues I had a vascular compression syndrome called superior mesenteric artery syndrome, and that was really, really, really rough. It was around the beginning of last year through kind of the summer and fall. I was hospitalized for a while. I had to leave school because I was too sick to be in school. But getting diagnosed with that, even though the diagnosis process was just absolutely horrendous, and I will carry that with me forever, being diagnosed with that at the time that I do believe saved my life. And I would not be here if I had not fought so hard to get a diagnosis and to get treatment for that. And then about a year after that happened, I was diagnosed with the second vascular compression syndrome that I had asked to be tested for the first time around. It took about 5 minutes for them to test for it. They found it immediately once they finally caved about a year later. And so being diagnosed with those things, I don't want to minimize your experiences because they are different, but for me, especially that the superior mesenteric artery syndrome one, that could have been a matter of life and death. And so getting diagnosed with that was so important. And the fact that I was diagnosed and treated for that in a timely manner means I get to be here today, and I get to keep living, and I get to grow up, and I get to do all these things. And I'm so grateful that I get the chance to be here today. Like, it feels a little silly, like I'm so grateful to be alive sometimes, but every time something goes wrong, every time something is shitty, I'm like, well, it could be a lot worse. It could be worse.
I don't think that's
and the other
silly at
fun
all.
thing that the other fun thing that happened with that was they found out I liked Star Wars when I was in the hospital, and they gave me Star Wars stuff because they're like, oh, this poor kid is going through some shit. Like this girl, this fucking sucks. I'm sorry. You want an action figure? And I'm like, hell yeah, I'll take your action figures. Whoever donated the Star Wars toys to my hospital, I love you so much. Got the Gorg, and then I also got some Mando stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh,
amazing.
I'll take it. Yeah. They have great stickers. They had like a hospital prom, and I brought one of my friends. I'm like, this is the one that has the Spider-Man stickers. I like going to neurology because they have the Spider-Man stickers. The other one at the GI clinic, they don't have Spider-Man stickers. They have car stickers. You would like it, Sawyer. They have car stickers. I'm like, but they don't have the Spider-Man ones there. So I like going to neurology because they have the Spider-Man stickers. So yeah, that's my little diagnosis story. But my life has definitely gotten better since then, and even now with the second vascular compression syndrome diagnosis, right now I'm not a candidate for a surgery that would be kind of a big step in treating that. But just knowing that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't making it up for this year, that I was asking and I was begging for help and being like, I wasn't crazy. I knew there was something wrong, and I knew exactly what it was. I knew exactly what it was that was wrong. I wasn't crazy. I might not be able to get treatment right now, but at least I don't have to have my whole life on hold, not knowing whether there's something incredibly dangerous that needs to be fixed right now that's not going to be fixed, and then I'm just going to die and can't do anything about it. Now I can move forward with my life. I know what my options are. I know how to better take care of myself. I've gotten a lot better at maintaining proper nutrition now, which has been just completely life changing. Um, like about a year and a half ago, I could barely walk. At the beginning of 2023, I was completely bedbound. And I go out and I spin lightsabers now. So as shitty as it is sometimes and as hard as it is, I'm like, my life has gotten exponentially better. I'm in college.
Mhm.
I left high school when I was really sick, and I didn't know if I would ever be able to return, if I would be alive long enough to to go to college and to fulfill my dreams. And now I'm in my second year of college and I'm so happy. Sorry, that got like a little bit it got a little bit much, but that is my story, and I don't talk about it a lot because it is heavy and it is hard, but it's my life, and I think I don't know, I it's hard talking about it because it's just it's heavy for people and it's heavy for me, and
Mhm.
a lot of the time people are just like, "Oh, that sucks." Like, yeah, what do you say to that? Like, genuinely, what do you say to that? And I don't know how I would respond to that, and so it's I try not to talk about it just because I know it's hard for other people, but not talking about it for me is like there's this whole part of my life that has changed the way I look at everything and the way that I live and the way that I interact with the world. And it almost feels like I have to keep that to myself. And it feels like such a big thing to hold in and to not be able to talk about. And so that's part of why I was so excited to talk about this here because I feel like I need to talk about this. And I also want to talk about how much fandom has helped me with it because even though it sounds like such a silly little thing, having someone come in and be like, "Hey, do you want this Mando action figure?" I'm like, "Yes." I had my little corner set up. I had my little hospital support squad, and I had some Ahsokas. I had a Spider-Man. I have my feeding tube pump, and I have a little Spider-Man. It's in some of my videos, but I have a little Spider-Man that sits on top of my feeding tube pump still. And just having those like little reminders of hope and of your fandom and of the things that you love and the community that you love. Like those little things were that's what got me through it. At the end of the
Mhm.
day, it wasn't I want to have a career and I want to go back to college. That was part of it, but being like, shit, the Ahsoka series is coming out in a couple months. I can't die. I need to see Ahsoka. Like that was it. That was what got me through a lot of it. It wasn't like, oh, I need a career. I need to fall in love one day. No, I need to see Ahsoka. I need to see Ezra. Where is Ezra? I can't die before Ezra comes home. That I need to stay
That's
alive so I can see Ezra
that's
come
real.
home. Yeah.
No, that's so valid. No, thank you so much for sharing
Yeah.
because that's why we're here and I'm glad that you feel like this is a safe space where you
Yeah.
can
Thank you
share and
guys
talk
for
about
making it a
it.
safe space also. Yeah.
I was going to say like I get for I guess talking about, having your life improved or saved because of
Yeah.
your diagnosis. I also think just the because I can't speak for that. I've not had to deal with anything of that severity, but just like the validation of knowing that you're not insane, that what you it's crazy how many like I'm sure there's research that's been done of like women that do their own research, diagnose themselves, and like how often they're correct despite being like shut down by doctor after doctor, because
Yeah.
I feel
I
like
would
it's
love to
got to
see that
be
research.
a huge like percentage of women that are very correct in their diagnosis of themselves, because no one knows your body than more better than yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the I it's but it's really hard to advocate for yourself in like
Mhm.
It
the
is,
health
especially
world.
without sounding
Mhm.
crazy because you start begging for a diagnosis, you start begging for pain medication. It's, oh, you're pain
Mhm.
seeking or you're drug seeking or
Mhm.
you're seeking attention. You're all these things where it's like, oh, you're begging for a diagnosis, you're begging for medication. It's like, well, yeah, because I can feel my life falling away from me. I can feel these opportunities and these things that like I want so badly for myself and I think people deserve, and I'm not able to access that. Like I'm not begging for medication or I'm not begging for a diagnosis because I want attention or because I think it would be like a fun little like label to slap on myself. Like if I wanted like there are so many other fun labels that you could stack on yourself besides a disability. And I think that's kind of a part that gets lost in translation where people on the outside see this like very attention seeking part of that. Whereas when you're in that process of trying to get a diagnosis and trying to get help, all you're really looking for is someone to help you access what you need out of life and to help you get there and to help you get those answers that will help. And the diagnosis, and then a lot of it's not just the diagnosis, it's then the treatment and the help that you get from having that diagnosis that you can't access otherwise.
Yeah.
Because when you finally have an answer as to what it is, there are methods and there are things and kind of options to help you deal with that that aren't available otherwise. So it's not just like, oh, I want a fun little label to slap on myself and call it a day. It's like, no, I want to improve my life and get to have these experiences and get to live and get to relate to other people and get to understand myself as well. That's so important.
No, yes to everything that was said there. I also think it's very interesting that it's almost the opposite I've found in the like mental health sphere
Mm,
because my experience with diagnoses is I was given the wrong diagnoses like
okay,
7
interesting.
times and I was just kind of thrown a pill and said, "Okay, here you go, you feel better." Um, which is something that happens with
Yeah,
a lot of neurodivergent disabilities and a lot of mental health issues, especially in women, you know, it's like we don't call it hysteria anymore, but the way that women are treated in mental health is still very much
yeah,
like, "Oh, you're in hysteria. Here you go. Have a pill. Take it once a day. You'll feel better, babe." Um, and so my journey to diagnosis with autism was a very, very long one because I
yeah,
was just being told I was basically everything except for the disability that I actually have.
yeah,
Um, and I always tell people, you know, first of all, diagnosis is not for everyone, especially in the mental health sphere. Like there are a lot of pros and cons to doing it, and I think that that journey is very personal. But if you choose to do it, and honestly, I think when you're shopping for doctors and therapists and whoever it is that you need on your team to help you be the best version of yourself, you need to find somebody who's going to treat you like you know you better than anybody else because you do. And I'm very grateful that I found those people. But if I hadn't, and if I hadn't found a clinic that specialized in adult women who had been brushed under the rug, I never would be in this position that I am right now.
yeah. Sometimes finding the right doctor or the right support system or the right therapist can be the difference between your life being controlled by your symptoms and the issues that a disability causes and having those things be managed.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad that I'll say this like 10 times I think while we're recording, but I'm so glad we're having this
Yeah,
conversation because I also think there are a lot of doctors, at least in like the mental health field, that are like, everyone thinks they're autistic now, everyone thinks they have ADHD now because of TikTok. But like, let's get real here. Without social media, I would have never even had the access to any information that would make me consider, oh, you do have ADHD, you are neurodivergent, because that was not something I had considered before until I, would come across accounts that would be talking about it. And I'm like, wow, every single thing about this relates to my experience. And from there, you can do more research. And I know I've seen there are a lot of, speaking of like Ehlers-Danlos, there's a lot of overlap, a lot of with neurodivergency and a lot of these other disabilities. And so I see a lot of posts on my feeds about like being hypermobile or POTS or whatever it could, like whatever it is. And it's crazy how much overlap there is. And so I think it's helped a lot of people figure out what direction to go in when you approach a doctor, because it can be hard to explain your feelings and your symptoms or your pain without really having any basis to go on. So I think even if you are dismissed by doctors, just having the accessibility of that knowledge for yourself, like doing your own research, is so incredibly valuable, because
yeah, for sure.
hopefully you will find at least one doctor who will take you seriously. And it might take a long time, and it might be really stressful and traumatic. I'm sure many people can relate to that, but I'm very thankful for the like social media people, content creators that talk about all of these things.
Well, and I think that that's in and of itself is a form of media representation of disability. We talk a lot about how, or at least I used to make, sorry, we can cut this part out. But I used to make videos about disability representation in Star Wars and in Marvel and stuff, and I had to stop because it just, there were a couple people who were like, this is really cool, but 90% of it was middle-aged men being like, Darth Vader isn't disabled. What do you mean his suit that keeps him in a permanent state of pain and agony and disability means he's disabled? Liberal teenage
You
girl,
mean the
know
man that literally had all 4 limbs cut off is
he's
not disabled?
What are you talking
Crazy.
about? Darth Maul isn't disabled. What are you talking about? What do you mean there's a disabled spider person? Spider-Man can't be disabled. Spider-Man can
So
be a
triggering
car.
to
Spider-Man
them.
can be a
It's wild.
T-Rex. Spider-Man can be a Spider-Man suit full of spiders, but Spider-Man cannot be disabled. And I was just like,
Sun Spider is literally disabled. She's literally disabled.
she's literally me. She's literally. I want to talk about her later.
We will
Anyone-
absolutely get
if-
into that. But that's
if anyone
crazy
has-
because
yeah.
that character in particular, she's literally, that's part of her story.
Yeah, and so I used to make videos about like what disability representation looks like in the media. Is it good? Is it bad? What forms of disability representation help the disabled community? What forms harm them? And I used to talk about that a lot. I used to talk a lot about representation in the media. I talked a lot about Jewish representation, and I had to stop doing that after I got a Hitler edit with like me in the beginning, and it like crossed out, and then it was like a Hitler fan edit. That I was like, I'm done. This is not worth it.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
That was a moment that I was like, wow, people do the darndest things. I just had to sit there and imagine some sad little man making his Hitler fan edit, and I'm like, whatever might be wrong with me or whatever was wrong with my take, which it wasn't wrong. I was just talking about representation. I'm like, whatever was bad about what I did, this is a million times worse. This is so embarrassing. If I did that, I would never leave my house. I mean, I embarrass myself all the time. I went to see Deadpool and Wolverine last night, and I went to take a picture of Hugh Jackman's abs, and my flash went off in front of the whole theater. That I was like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. And then I remembered that a guy sat there and made a Hitler fan edit, and I'm like, it's not that bad, so I'm all good. I'm like, nothing will ever compare to that. So I used to talk about, I got very off topic there, but I used to talk a lot about representation in media, but I think people just genuinely talking about their experiences and what does disability look like for people who might be like, oh, I'm not disabled. And then they see someone who's like, I'm disabled. This is my experience. This is what I do to help myself. This is what my life looks like. This is okay. This doesn't make me a bad person. It's not some sort of moral failing, because I think one of the biggest issues in kind of mainstream disability representation is it's either inspiration porn or it makes disability out to be a metaphor for moral failing. And to just see real people being like, I'm disabled. That's a part of my life. There are also other parts of my life. I just happen to be a disabled person. Like I'm disabled, but there are so many other things about me as a person, and being disabled is just one of them. And that's a part of my life. That's part of who I am. It's not the only thing, but it's not also, it's an important part of me, but then it's not the only part. And so being able to see that and having real representation through people is such an important thing. And like you said, like that can help people so much. I've had people comment on a video like a year ago and be like, hey, I'm trying to get diagnosed with this. Like, what has your experience been like? What were some of the things you were going through? And then like a year later, I'll recognize their comment when they comment again and they say, hey, I just started getting treatment. My life is so much better. And being like, damn, I talked about what my life looks like. I talked about maybe a little snippet of my daily experience, and that might have helped someone turn their life around. That could help someone just be either in the smallest way of just being like, wow, I'm not alone in this, or in the biggest way of helping someone get diagnosed and turn their whole life around and have such a better experience. I think seeing that representation, whether it's just people talking about their experience or accurate representation in film and books and TV shows and all that media, I think those are all kind of important things.
Yeah. And I think too, there's a lot of, I've been doing a series lately where I've been very candid about my struggles with depression and mental health. And I've also been talking a lot about autism ever since I got diagnosed, and because that has changed my life in ways that I wasn't expecting it to after, like I had suspected that I had autism for several years, but then there's a lot that they don't talk about after you're diagnosed with something, like, and how that changes your life. And I've always been very genuine, very honest on the internet, and that's not everybody's cup of tea, and I don't blame them, because oversharing is, can be dangerous, but it is just how I like to present myself. And a lot of people are like, why are you sharing your personal business on? And it's like, well, because every once in a while, once a week, twice a week, maybe even 5 times a week, someone will reach out to me and say, hey, thank you so much for bringing attention to this, because I feel this way. And the misinformation that's online is frustrating. And even yesterday, for all of the ableism that I was seeing in talking about why I attach to fandom and why I attach to fiction in the way that I do in comparison to other people who might be fans of the same type of show or media, um, there were a lot of people who were neurotypical who were like, "Hey, I don't understand, but I want to." And
Mhm.
it's like, okay, so if I've established rapport, I've established trust with my community. Now we're going to talk about the nitty gritty of the things that I have to experience in my life. And if you trust me and if you value me as a content creator and as a person, then you saying that you're willing to listen to me and willing to learn is the best possible response that I could possibly get from something like that. So I'll keep doing it because I don't
Yeah.
really care if it bothers somebody that I'm talking about my personal problems. It's not my personal problems, it's my life. It's like I don't get to, and that's another thing too, like when I was
Yeah.
first diagnosed, I didn't really like the label of having like being disabled, and then the longer I sat with it and the more I realized just how much autism affects my everyday everything. It affects literally every second of every day. It affects my dreams. It affects me when I'm asleep. Like I I don't get to leave it at home when I go to work or to school, or I don't get to leave it at home even when I'm online. Like I get the crazy eyes comment all the time, especially when I'm talking about something that I'm really, really passionate about. Like my lore videos, I get the crazy eyes comment, and it's like, yeah, actually, I do have crazy eyes, but the crazy eyes are a part of my disability. Like, um, so I think it's really valuable to have these conversations in groups, but also to talk about them online. Um, in public spaces, because even just educating one person is adding to, that person is going to go, they're going to think about it whether or not they say something. They're going to think about it the next time they hear one of their close friends or family say the R slur. They're going to think about me if I talk about
Yeah.
how I'm feeling about some media and they witness somebody else having some kind of breakdown about media. They're going to think about the tweet that I put out saying, "Hey, this is why I'm doing this," and they're gonna look at a different person and go, "Oh, okay, I don't know what they're struggling with. Maybe this is," you know. I think that these conversations have the potential to cultivate empathy for the people that are willing to have it and employ it.
Yeah, absolutely. But speaking of fandom and how it has affected our life, I think we can move into that conversation because obviously we're all here because we're fangirls. Um, so I'd love to talk a little bit about how like fandom has helped us in our lives just in general, but also if it's helped you in your uh disability journey. I don't know what else to call it. And we can, yeah, anyway, we'll talk about that, and I want to talk about characters that we connect to, transitioning to fandom things because we're all fangirls in this house. I would love to hear how fandom has helped you in your personal life, in your journey to being diagnosed and getting treated and recovery, etc., etc. I'd love to know because I know fandom holds a very special place in my heart, and I'm sure it does with both of you as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Poppy, you wanna go first?
Yeah, sure. I can go ahead. I think this is something I could genuinely talk about. I could have just yapped the entire episode about this. I need to make my own videos at some point about this because it's something that I've been thinking about for a while. But I think there are so many ways, big and small, that fandom has helped me get through it, both on an individual level. I think Ahsoka has been the main character who has helped me get through just everything. I feel so much of my kind of journey is kind of similar to hers in some ways. Um, the kind of constant reminders to lean towards the light and to have hope and to see a path forward, even if it's not the path that you originally saw for yourself. That's been something that's helped me be content and accepting with my own journey. When I had to leave school, I had to graduate early, but it was very much a very sudden thing where it was like I couldn't be in school anymore. because my disability just made it too difficult and I was too sick to be in school. And it was a choice, but it was leave school and don't and not really have a clear vision forward, or stay in school and know that I would fail and know that I wouldn't have a path forward there either. So it was very much a dead end path or an unknown path. And when I was making that decision, I was like, I can't choose to walk away from this. This is all I know. This is all I know how to do. And I was like, well, Ahsoka made that same decision. She had to choose between staying with the Jedi Order and knowing that there wasn't a path forward for her there, and knowing that that wasn't a path where she necessarily had the support and had the people who would keep her safe. And she didn't have trust in that path anymore, just as I didn't have trust in like the people at school to be able to accommodate for me, and for even myself, I didn't necessarily see myself on that path anymore. And she very much walked away from that into this very kind of she walked onto a different path, an unknown path, and she didn't know where that would take her. And I was like, well, if she can do it, maybe I can as well. And that choice has genuinely been one of the best decisions I've made in my life. Like I've said, I'm in my second year of college right now. I'm doing great with that. Some of my classes are online, some of them have been in person, but that's been such a life-changing and positive journey that I've been on, and I credit a lot of that to Ahsoka. I bring I've made videos about this as well, but I bring Lula with me every time I go to the hospital. She was with me the whole time. When I got wheeled back for surgery, I brought her with me into the room and everything, and they let me do that. So I have her with me all the time. I have a little Bad Batch with me here as well. Give me literally any character, honestly, with a genetic mutation, and I'm like, that's me. That's so me. I can relate to that, and I can find kind of acceptance of myself in that. And oh my gosh, okay, there was something else I wanted to say there. Yeah, I think acceptance through that, and seeing these characters who go on similar journeys and kind of have similar struggles to me, whether it's in a very similar way, kind of with the Ahsoka thing, or just kind of general themes of life. I can kind of see that and be like, there was a path forward for them. This challenge, this hurdle, it was not the end. Their story kept going. And if, there might be hurdles and there might be struggles, whether it's everyday stuff that makes it hard just to exist and live life and do things, like I can get over those hurdles too. That isn't the end of my story either. But I think another big thing has been community for me. Fandom has provided such an incredible community. Some of my friends, like my in-person friends, just weren't supportive, weren't understanding. No one really kept in contact with me when I left school. I was in the hospital by myself, and just no one really reached out. And I was like, I could die and it feels like no one cares. But the people who cared were my fandom friends. And I go to conventions now and people come up to me and they're like, we're mutuals. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And we make these connections. And I started going to Disneyland every year for my birthday. And one of my best friends lives down in the LA area. And for a while, I didn't really know what I wanted to do for school. I'm going to community college right now, but I'm going to transfer hopefully next year. And for the first time in a while, I see a really clear path forward to myself. I'm like, I want to go down to school down there. I have support. I have community there. And there are these people that I met because we made Star Wars TikToks. And I was like, oh my gosh, you like the same characters I do. Do you want to talk? And now I might move in with them. And these people who we all met, I was talking to some of my friends the other night. I'm like, we were just making little silly 15-second videos about Star Wars. Like that was it. And I trust you with my life now. These people, they are my support system, and I love them so much. And I have so much love for both my very close friends, but also kind of the community that this fandom has given me. And as much as kind of the fandom menace is awful and can be so hard sometimes, I think there's kind of this equal light side of this gorgeous community that comes out of fandom. And that's helped me both with disability stuff and just with life, being like, there is a community of people who are always going to be there. I might not be able to see them in person. I might not talk to them every day, but I know that they're there, and we are all connected through these stories and through these characters that we all love so much. So that's kind of that's my little piece with that. I could keep going, but that's the short version. That wasn't short, but that's about as short as I can get with that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up community, because as I sat here thinking about what my answer would be, especially as it relates to my own struggles with my disability, is community has to be the number one thing, right? Because If there's anything that people know universally about autism, it's that we have trouble socializing. We have trouble making connections that come so naturally to holistic people. And that has been true my entire life. And it wasn't until fandom that I was able to connect with people about topics on such an intense scale, because so many neurodivergent people are super fans of things, that I was able to connect with people. And I had started having internet friends when I was like 12, like when I first started making, Instagram pages specific to my, you know, very, very early days of Instagram. Like, I don't even think DMs were a thing. Like, um, but I and especially as an adult and somebody who really hasn't been able to find herself authentically until after this diagnosis, which I just got, and I'll be 24 in a week and a half. So, that's a quarter
By then,
life
yeah.
that
Yeah.
I have gone without this knowledge. But in my adult life especially, it becomes harder to make friends.
Mhm.
And COVID presented such a unique opportunity to me because I was able to start making content and make connections with people that were very like-minded. And that's the reason we're here right now on this
Yeah.
podcast. Um, and it's like th- fandom has given me this opportunity to find the people who can appreciate me for the as authentic as I
Yeah.
am, my truest self. Um, and the people on the internet are I think that there was a time where my parents would have dreaded the fact that, like, I like to think about who my wedding party would be, and almost every single person on that list I met on the internet. But that's because I've created such wonderful relationships through fandom, and it not only has helped me find that community that I always struggled to make, but on my own, but it also has helped me improve some of the skills that I struggle with socially, and figure out, one thing that's kind of crazy to me, because when we think about what a good friend is, I think that anybody would answer that question the same way, I think anyway. But then when I did my evaluation for autism, one of the things that they noted was that I had a very superficial understanding of what like interpersonal relationships were. And I was very perplexed by that, because I was like, no, I think I know what a good friend is and what I value in a friend and what I should do to be a friend. But there are things that I struggle with that I just don't even think about. And fandom and meeting these people has allowed me to learn and, like, kind of learn how to be a friend, how to, you know, engage socially in a way that I don't just default to. So, you know, I guess it's kind of deep, but, like, truly, I don't think that I would, and I think I'm a good friend. I think I am a really good friend now, much better than I was before all of this. And so, like, that's kinda sad, but it's not really. Like, I'm grateful for fandom because of that.
How about you,
Yeah,
Brooke?
I feel similarly. I growing up, especially when you hit like the middle school, high school years, because I would say I had friends in elementary school. I played soccer, I was on a soccer team, I was in Girl Scouts. So I had like groups of friends that I would hang out with. I guess like I don't know. I don't want to say that I didn't have friends, especially in elementary school, but a lot of it was like sanctioned by like these
Mhm.
Mhm.
common interests, like my soccer team, my Girl Scout troop. But I did have like friends that I genuinely had been friends with from the time I was like 3 years old. And these are friends that I stopped speaking to in middle school. Um, I they got with the popular crowd,
Yeah.
and I was there for a little bit. I remember being like, wow, like I'm friends with like the popular girls. And at some point I remember there was like some sleepover that I went to with a whole group of them, and I don't think that I was ever invited to anything ever again by them after that. And I could not fathom why. I was like, why am I being left out of these groups? I only had like one or two really close friends that even them I don't talk to anymore. I'm very lucky now that I have a group of friends that I lived with in college my very last semester that I have stayed friends with, and like that. And I'm 29, so it's only in like recent years that I have felt like I have a solid group of friends that I see at home, like my IRL friends, even though my internet friends are also my IRL friends too, but just to like differentiate. um but it was very hard there for so long. I felt, why am I the one being left out? Like, why am I not getting invited? Even when I'm in groups, I always struggle with, when is it my time to talk? What if I, talk about something that no one's interested in? What if other people are talking about things that I'm not interested in? I've always been told that I'm so shy, I'm so quiet. It's a lot of the time it's like, well, because I didn't have anything to say because it wasn't something that I wanted to talk about. And that sounds mean, but I guess just like
No.
the way
Yeah.
that my neurodivergent brain works is, I'm constantly searching for that dopamine, and a lot of the times I get that dopamine with my social interactions when it involves something that I am very interested in talking about, and I struggle to add to the conversation if it's something that I'm not as interested in. I've always struggled with small talk, and it's the more that I like break it down in my brain, it's and Sawyer and I have talked about this before about how I also struggle. Like, I don't need to be right, but it feels like if someone else doesn't have all of the information, I'm like, no, but I have to give you all of the
Yeah.
information.
Oh
But
my
then
gosh, yes.
I still don't understand how, like, after I tell someone all of the
The
information,
information.
how they don't feel the same way that I feel. Because it's
Yes.
like,
Oh my
now we have
gosh,
all the
yes.
information, but you still feel differently. And I have to remind myself that, like, allistic people and neurotypical people, they form their opinions a lot of the time on their feelings and
Mhm.
not on like the logical facts of a situation. And that's never going to change. And so I always struggle in situations like that. And a lot of the time when I have conversations or there is something that I don't agree with, or I don't understand why it's a problem or why it isn't a problem, I just don't say anything, because it's easier for me than to be like the know-it-all or the has to be right all the time person, because that's not who I am. That's not what I'm trying to be, but it can come across that way. But anyway, all of that to say, I love my friends at home. I love my friends that I have, and that they're all very supportive. And especially with this like unmasking journey that I've done in the last, year or so. But the community that I have been able to find online through the fandom sphere has been so nice. Like, I never feel like I'm completely alone, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
I've been able to form these wonderful connections, like to the point where I'm four 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 of my I can't do math. Four of my friends that I've met on the internet, we are all going to an Airbnb next weekend
Oh, nice.
and playing D&D, because they're all in my D&D party, and we're going to the Renaissance Fair and cosplaying as our characters. Like,
That's so
in
fun.
what world is that? Like, that's not a normal thing to do, but because
Yeah.
all of my other friends are interested in it, and a lot of them are also neurodivergent, it's like the best thing ever. I'm like, I would rather be doing this than like going out to the club. Just saying.
Oh my
I
God,
don't have
yeah.
energy to go to the club. I'm too
But you know
tired
what?
and anxious.
You say it's not normal, but then I think about like how many people had watch parties when Game of
Mhm.
Thrones was coming out. And
Mhm.
like that was like a cultural phenomenon.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody knew somebody that had a Game of Thrones watch party. And now it's like if you say that you're that into something, whether it be Star Wars or Marvel or D&D, whatever it is, we've reverted back to this idea of like,
Oh, that's weird.
Mhm.
oh, um, but I know so many people who had Game of Thrones watch parties. It's not even funny. But
Good
Yeah.
point.
so
I
I think it is normal. But
Yeah. And even going
Yeah.
back to what you were saying about like struggling to find friendships, I was just at GalaxyCon San Jose, and
I was waiting for a panel and I overheard this girl who looked like she was maybe in middle school, and that was, I think, such a hard time for so many people, but I think especially neurodivergent people struggled a lot in that kind of time and
Mhm.
setting. And I heard this girl who was in a gorgeous cosplay. I don't know what character she was cosplaying, but it was a great cosplay. And she was telling these two other people who looked about her age, and they've all had their kind of parents kind of standing around, like kind of convention babysitting. And this one girl was like, "You guys, it's so cool because at school I'm an outcast and I don't have any friends, but then I get to come here and I'm not weird and I don't have to worry if people will like me or not because I know that we all love this and we all love each other, and I wait all year to get to come here, and I love this so much and I love meeting people so much. I don't feel alone." And I was like, "Oh, someone give me tissues. I'm gonna sit here in the corner," and like I'm about to sob. But it's like it genuinely gives you that community, and it's a space where you don't have to feel alone anymore. And in other settings where it might be like, "Hi, I'm Poppy. I'm the Star Wars girl." Like in one of my classes, it was like even in college, it was like this joking thing of like, "Oh, she's the Star Wars girl." It's like, and
Mhm.
it was always said in a funny way, but it always kind of felt a little bit like, "Oh, she's the Star Wars girl." Like that's a weird thing. It's like when I'm with my Star Wars friends, it's not like, "Oh, you're the Star Wars girl." It's like, "Oh my gosh, let's all talk about Star Wars together." And I have a sticker in the back of my phone case because it's actually absurd. I have so much crap in the back of my phone case. It's like
Oh,
round.
same.
Yeah, it's like
Same
round
here.
now.
The
But I have
card!
Yeah. Oh, I have it's my Lae'zel Magic
oh,
the Gathering
nice.
card that I got
So
courtesy of Sawyer and Billy last
nice.
weekend. So thanks.
I have a sticker in the back of my phone case and it says, "I'm never alone when a galaxy far, far away feels like home." And I think that's, at least in like the Star Wars sphere, I think that that's kind of sums up a lot of it. It's like you aren't alone, whether it's the characters that make you feel like you're not alone, the stories and the representation when you see yourself in these stories and these characters that makes you feel not alone, or the actual other people in the community that make you feel not alone. It's like no matter what you're going through and what it is, there's something that you can find comfort in. There's someone that can feel like home. There's a story, there's a place, there's a character that can feel like home to you. And whether that's escapism or it's just finding community or kind of any of those things, I think it all kind of comes back to not feeling alone and not feeling hopeless. I think it gives hope and it gives community, and it's been such an important part of my life, and I see it being such an important part of other people's lives. And it, as almost corny as it sounds, it's such a beautiful thing to be a part of. And that's why I don't understand people are who are fans of something that hate it. And I'm like, dude, if you don't like this, like I don't know what you're doing because I love this. That's why I'm
Mhm.
here. Like if you don't like it, it was funny. My stepdad had a friend over last night, and we were talking about movies and stuff. I'm like, "Oh, do you like Star Wars?" And he's like, "I've watched all them, but I don't really like them." I'm like, "Okay, so you kind of qualify as a Star Wars fan, close enough." Like, all right, because he's like, "I'm not really a Star Wars fan." I'm like, "Well, you kind of are at this point." Like, there are plenty of people who call themselves Star Wars fans that don't actually like it. But
Real.
I'm like, I love it so much. It's such an incredible community and such a like it sounds so corny, but it's such a beautiful community to be a part of, and I'm so happy that I get to be a part of that community. Um, and like I talk about a lot about like when I talk about Ahsoka, like the love and light and empathy and understanding that comes and shines through her character, and I think that that's such an important part that I try and carry with me all the time. But I think finding your space within a fandom and within a community or your community within a fandom that kind of holds those same things and feels that way is such an incredible thing. It does almost feel similar to getting a diagnosis in a funny way where it's like I feel understood. There are people who
Mhm.
understand me. There are people who get me. I don't feel alone anymore. I don't feel crazy anymore. It's like, okay, I understand what's going on in my body. I understand what's going on in my mind, or I'm finding people who understand me and understand
Mhm.
what I love and they love it as well and they experience that feeling as well. I think that those things end up feeling kind of similar for me.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I know. Like,
Oh.
can you guys tell that we like fandom stuff? We're fangirls. I know. If you couldn't tell before, you can tell now.
I had something to say and now I can't remember what it was.
I feel like
So I think that
that's
makes
gonna
all
be
3
half
of
of the
us.
edited stuff. That's gonna be half the
Yeah.
edited stuff. Is us just being
Uh-huh.
like, there was something.
Yeah.
Guys, we
It was
promise
a thing.
there was something that there was something. You just either it was really funny or it was really smart, and you just have to like know that it was really funny and smart and just roll with that.
Yep.
That's
I
the most
would
humble thing.
love to talk a little bit about characters that I know, Poppy, you've mentioned Ahsoka, but I would love to talk about like characters that we relate to. A lot of the time, characters that are disabled or neurodivergent canonically in these media are portrayed a little stereotypical at best. So there are a lot of characters that are very coded as neurodivergent that I really relate to and see myself in, and characters that you might not think of as being disabled, but they are. We were talking about that a little bit before. We I don't know if we might have cut it out in the for the or just for the Patreon, but we're talking about like characters that we don't think of as being disabled, but they really are. So I'd love to talk about, because I could go on a whole tangent about how there's so many like autistic characters in media that are so poorly represented as what it actually is, and how that is how a lot of people see that thing in their mind, because that's the media they're consuming. And I think as someone who is neurodivergent, I'm able to kind of, I guess, empathize with a lot of characters and I guess attach myself to them because I can headcanon them a certain way, or I can see where the roots of their character has been written with like someone who is neurodivergent in mind, or even not always, because I'm sure in Hollywood Hollywood is full of neurodivergent people, because there's a special level of like passion that you have in creative fields as a neurodivergent person. But I'm sure there's a lot of like undiagnosed neurodivergent people that also are working in the industry and writing these characters, unknowingly writing these characters because it's a reflection of their own experience. And then I think there's a lot of people like us that relate to them. Long-winded way of saying there's a lot of characters that I relate to, so I'd love to hear more about characters that you all relate to in which way or the other. But yeah, I'm bad at asking questions.
No, you're all good. I feel like I've been going first the whole time, and also like I know we're on a yapping podcast, but I feel like I've been talking a lot, and that's something that I do a lot of time. Where someone's like, "Oh my god, like you've just talked about yourself the whole time," or I tell you something about myself, and then you talk about yourself, and I'm like, "Well, I'm trying to like relate to you," and so like, "Oh, I get what you're saying. This is how I relate to that," and I like try and show that I understand that by talking, and then I talk incessantly all the time. So I don't want to like talk first the whole time and like take over the whole thing.
No, it's okay.
But
You're on a guest.
It is a yapping podcast, so I have to keep reminding myself.
Yes, we're yappers, and you're our guest,
yapping.
and so we're here to listen to you yap, and we will interject our yaps, in between.
All right. I think, like I was saying before, that I kind of touched on, give me a character with a genetic mutation, and I'm like, that's me right there. You see that? That's me. And so I think the couple big ones that I've been coming back to recently is the Bad Batch. So much love for the Bad Batch, and I can't even put into words how much I appreciate them and how much I've loved their storylines and following that. I think specifically for me, I've connected the most with Tech and the most with Echo. I think Echo's kind of experience and portrayal of medical trauma resonated so deeply with me, because it's like every time I go in the hospital, I'm like, I know I'm there to get help. I know that technically the people there are there to help me, but I don't have trust in that. And I also just I know that some of the worst moments of my life have happened in that building, and so every time I receive medical care, it's like it's all of those moments happening all over again. It's all of that. It's laying there thinking I'm about to die, and just being so scared of that, and seeing a character who kind of reflected those experiences and also became disabled at a certain point. Like I always had little things where it was like there was something a little off. Like I used to just like bend myself in weird positions, and it'd be like, oh, haha, funny. Oh, my knee makes weird noises. That's kind of funny. Look how my knee is over there. And it's like, oh, my knee was just fully dislocated, and that I just thought that was a little silly, hee hee, funny moment. And just always being injured, and so there were always little signs that there was something off. But I didn't, I think, fully become disabled until a couple of years ago, and to have a character that became disabled and had to cope with that reality and had to accept that change, and that
he didn't necessarily fit in with the 501st anymore, and that maybe wasn't the group of people for him anymore, and he had to like come to terms with that and accept that, and then made the choice to find the group of people where he was accepted and he did feel at home and did feel kind of accepted and understood, as well as those kind of medical trauma elements. I was like, wow, I feel like in some way I'm looking at a reflection of myself, and that was a really powerful moment to witness. And then also tech, just because I am a chronic yapper, a chronic corrector, a chronic fun fact dumper. I have chronic illnesses, but I also have a chronic yapping problem, and I think that the chronic yapping might be more severe than all of my medical issues. I overuse the word actually. It's become a problem. I like multiple times a day actually, and then insert whatever fun fact.
You're in the right company here.
I'm on the right podcast. Yeah. And the scene where Tech was talking to Omega about expressing his feelings, and just because like he maybe expressed it or felt it differently didn't mean that he didn't feel it at all, was also such a powerful moment to watch, and being like, shit, that's me. I feel like, and then being able to show that to people and being like, that's me. I might not be able to verbalize that and explain it, but this explains it. And they also have genetic mutations, so I'm like, oh my god, just like me. They're just like me. Oh
you said that, and I was like, have you heard of the X-Men?
Okay, so I've been trying to move kind of my collection between my dad's house and my mom's house, and then I'm also gonna hopefully be moving down to the LA area next year. So there's just been a lot of stuff moving around. I have a little X-Men shelf in my dad's house. My Marvel resurgence is in full force. I've rewatched all the X-Men movies. I'm on my second rewatch of all of them in the past week. Yeah, just all of them. They're all me. They're all my pookies. I have a friend who I have just been talking about it nonstop with. Just every single one of our texts, every single one of our conversations has been about the X-Men recently. And I think if I start talking about that, I will not stop. So I'll leave it at this. The X-Men, just the whole thing, every single one of them, all the time, every iteration, every comic, every novel, every TV show, every movie. Yes, that. And then hold on, I had my little listy here so I don't forget what I wanted to say, because there were actually some important things there. And then also kind of, I've been thinking about this a lot recently with the Deadpool and Wolverine movie that I went to see for a third time again. I have my Wolverine claws here that I've just been walking around the house with, just wearing these out. Hugh Jackman has inspired me to start working out. I do have to do everything laying down, which makes it a lot harder, but I'm like, I'm gonna get jacked. I'm gonna look like that. That's what I'm gonna do.
You and me both. I said I was gonna cosplay the Stranger for Celebration.
Oh, nice.
But I can't do it unless I gotta commit to it, because I'm like, I'm very into the. I mean, you can play Revan as a woman, but like most people play him as a man and whatever, and it's just like I'm very into the idea of cosplaying quote unquote male characters, but being first of all feminine with my interpretations, and also like it's a real slap in the face to the toxic
cosplaying
dude bros.
Revan is quite possibly the coolest thing ever.
Iconic.
It's great.
Yeah. But sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
No, all good. But then I was rewatching the Deadpool trilogy because I made my mom watch it, and she hates violence, so that was hard to get her through those movies. But I was having her rewatch those before going to take her to Deadpool and Wolverine last night, and I was looking at his story, and Deadpool or Wade coming to terms with, looking different and then being different and feeling not accepted, and this whole journey that he went on. I don't know if this is an unpopular hill to die on, but I think that when you strip away all the humor and all the comedy and all the action of the Deadpool trilogy, there's a really incredible thematic journey that happened, as well as kind of character development that I don't see talked about a lot. And I think that it might be one of the most well done Marvel trilogies in that sense. And I feel like that's kind of a hard thing to defend, because so much of those movies revolved around the humor and the action, and but it's, when you strip it down, he went on such an important character journey. But the coming to terms with being different, and that your life looks different, and that you might look different. Like, I still have a lot of shame about using mobility aids sometimes. And when I had a feeding tube, I still do. I put it in and I take it out myself when I need it, because I had a lot of shame about having that stuck to my face and just the way that people treated me because I looked different. I had a visible disability. And so seeing his character go on this journey of feeling not accepted and feeling like he had to hide himself, but then like finding this community and having like in Deadpool and Wolverine being like having this picture and be like, this is my whole world. These are my people. And I feel like I finally kind of gotten to a place where I don't have a picture of all of them together like that, but I have these people. I'm like, this is my whole world. Like, and they're the people who finally make me feel accepted and don't make me feel like a burden. I brought my wheelchair to Disney with me and I was so scared because I was meeting one of my friends from the internet for the first time, along with one of their friends that I didn't know either. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to, like, they're going to have to put my wheelchair in their car and they're going to have to deal with me having that. And it's going to be a burden and they might not like me and they're never going to want to talk to me again. And it was like, they were so chill about it. And it was just, it was there and I had it and they helped me with it. And it was no problem. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I found the people who I need in my life who will accept me and who don't look at me like I'm a burden or like I'm disgusting or like it's a problem. And so I think I've started kind of relating to that. I also just have a filthy mouth and swear incessantly. I've done a very good job so far for the most part. Yeah, no, my inner monologue. If Deadpool, if you guys ever need me to write for you guys, I'll just stream of consciousness it. Let's fucking go, dude. Like so him, of course, Ahsoka. I feel like I've already touched on that. I met Ashley Eckstein again at GalaxyCon. Was it last weekend? I think. And we talked a lot about that. And one of my favorite Ahsoka quotes is, "You don't have to look tough to be tough." And kind of this journey that she goes on where she's constantly underestimated or she's constantly doubted, and just her care for other people, but also just her light and her empathy. And I think that I carry a lot of those same values. And so seeing a character that goes through so many difficulties and has so many hurdles in her road that she has to kind of get over, and that she always kind of, not always, because she does struggle sometimes and she does kind of stray from her path a couple times, but for the most part she sticks to those principles and those values while navigating life and all of its difficulties. I relate to that so much, and I talked about kind of the like hard decisions I've had to make and how I look to her for that sometimes. And then also in the live action series, her quote, "I choose to live," I have it on a necklace that I wear every single day. And I remind myself of that. The surgery that I ended up not being a candidate for, I kind of had this planned in advance, but I wanted to get that quote tattooed over the scar or next to it, which I'm not going to do now. So I keep it on my necklace. But how she constantly chooses to keep living for what she believes in, and like always stays on kind of the light side, no matter what it is that she goes through. Like, I don't know if I relate to that as much as I strive to be that. I think it's a little mix of both. I don't want to be like, I'm Ahsoka and I'm so perfect and lovely and wonderful all the time. I'm like, if you took like Ahsoka and all of her loveliness and all of her toughness and you just mixed it with Deadpool. I'm like Ahsoka if she just swore constantly.
That would be a cool cosplay,
Yeah.
Ahsoka pool.
Mm-hmm.
Coming soon, guys. I have so many cosplay projects that I'm working on that I want to do. And then of course Sunspider, which we kind of touched on. She literally has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. She uses forearm crutches. I have mine in the corner that I want to paint black. If anyone has the files for a Sunspider suit and wants to send them to me, I will do just about anything to get those. I need a Sunspider suit. I need to cosplay her. She is literally me. I am her. Please, 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 please. Anyways, yeah, that's what I got.
And this is why representation matters, folks. If you hadn't caught on to that, I get asked that question so many times. And I've gotten that question asked so many times to me in the past week. But it's like, and there are sometimes that question is asked in bad faith, but sometimes people are just trying to understand. And the truth of the matter is, when people say representation matters, we're not saying we're unable to relate to characters that aren't exactly like us, or we're unable to enjoy stories that aren't exactly our own. But there is just something different and something special about being able to connect with a character or a story that relates to your life experience. And before, people often respond to that with, "Oh, well, it's fiction. They're space wizards. How can you relate to them?" And it's like, well, because a real person wrote that story. a real
Mhm.
person is behind that story. And all fiction, I say this all the time, all fiction is inspired to some degree by the reality that we know. And I know for me, like, I never get to talk about this, but Ben Solo is my trauma character. My like, he has been my favorite Star Wars character for a really long time, and that is because of his journey with trauma.
Yeah.
And I never get it's just like not something that I ever platform or talk about
Mm.
because, I don't know necessarily want to get into why I have trauma, but I
Yeah.
think that, you know, that's a great example of how many different ways representation can exist, because that is an instance in which I'm relating to a male character, so I can't relate to his journey in that way, but I relate to the nuance with which Adam Driver portrays the character, because you
Mhm.
can tell that uh, this was a child who was subject to so much trauma and neglect in his entire life. And my trauma is not that, and I don't relate to him in that way, but it's just the subtleties of having PTSD. And I haven't even, I don't even know if I've mentioned on the show that I have PTSD, but that is something that I struggle with. And like, that's another one of those brain things that people don't understand, because when we think of PTSD, we just think of
Military
the
and
military,
all this stuff.
right?
Yeah.
And so to have a character like Kylo Ren, who is a villain but is also very complex, multi-dimensional character, be portrayed by a veteran, actually,
Yeah.
who had the understanding of what PTSD does to the mind. That character means so much to me and has always meant so much to me. And only recently am I discovering, you know, I don't wanna cry, but The Acolyte was so meaningful for me because a woman wrote it, and I could tell that a woman wrote it. There was things in the dialogue and the story that I'm gonna cry. Um, I don't know if there will ever be another story in Star Wars that I connect with on such a personal level, and this is not explicitly stated, and I don't know if it was the intention, and if I ever have the privilege of speaking to Amanda Stenberg, I will ask them because I want to know, but Osha's character to me is someone who also struggles with trauma, but somebody who also seems to have great difficulty understanding and categorizing her emotions, and to me, that is the first character, just because this show came out at a time where I am learning about myself as an autistic individual, that I was able to relate to a character on that level and go, "Okay, well, I don't know that this character is autistic, but her journey and the things that she goes through and the ways that she goes through them and processes them feels so much like the things that I struggle with every day." And so yeah, man, that's why it matters.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to why, like, different media is so important, and hating things just because you don't relate to it is so it's so silly. Like, I hate to follow up what you just said with this, but The Acolyte really wasn't my cup of tea. I didn't hate it by any means. I just didn't really connect with it in an incredibly meaningful way like I have with some other Star Wars projects. And I didn't get online. I didn't say, "This is shit. This is the worst thing that's ever happened," because I was watching and I was sitting there, I'm like, "I know that this is going to resonate with someone. I know that I can feel that these stories and this character, I can feel that what they're doing with this, and it might not resonate with me, but I could feel how important it was going to be for someone else." So while I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, and there were parts of it that I really did love and I really did enjoy, but as overall, it just didn't really resonate with me in the same way. I could tell, I'm like, this is going to be important to someone else. And I hear stories online sometimes when I talk about different characters and things of people saying like, "Oh, well, this character did the same thing for me." I'm like, "Well, that's so interesting because they don't really mean anything to me. They aren't super important to me." And I'm like, I think that that's so part of why it's so important not to like get online and trash projects that you don't like, because that might be everything to someone else. That might be so
Mhm.
important to someone else. And just because it doesn't resonate with you and just because you don't like it doesn't mean that someone else will feel the same way. That, it's like that part. I don't know if you guys have seen, but there's like a clip of Chapel Run being like, "You're not fun." People just like
Yeah.
getting online,
Oh my
and
God.
I was. This is so embarrassing. This might actually be the most embarrassing thing that's happened in my life. I was in VIP when she said that, and she was like, "You guys aren't fun," and I'm like, and it was so bad because
No
she wasn't
way.
talking about us. She clearing the air. She was not talking about us. We were waiting there for 6 hours. We were all doing it. There's like an ultra VIP section that's like $5,000, and it's all just people who like get sent by like company and media.
Mhm.
They were the ones who weren't doing it. We were all there.
We were all
doing it. We were all doing it. But the part where she's like, "You're not fun." That's like people who get on the internet and crap on stuff they don't like. Like, you suck. You suck. You suck.
But you know what? I finally remembered what I was gonna say earlier
cool.
because you were talking about Disneyland and meeting your friends and like I talked about how my friends are all people that I met on the internet and like fandom is wonderful and these conversations are wonderful and these experiences are wonderful and Comic-Con is wonderful and like I think that it's hard. I feel like we get so wrapped up in the negativity and like this we often categorize it as like the fandom menace or like the side of the fandom, but it really feels separate to me. And it really feels like, yeah, we have some people that like trickle in and come in to be negative and say mean things and try to put us down because they think that we all belong in the same space. But it's pretty clear to me that the people that align themselves with the lack of empathy and the harassment and the, treating people who disagree with you with nothing but disrespect, like that is not what I think of when I think of the Star Wars fandom, Like,
Yeah.
I think of the actual fandom who actually likes the stuff. So,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and I think that that is, like, a really important distinction. A lot of times people will ask me, like, "How do you have so much hope? How do you have so much positivity?" And it's like, because this is not my fandom. This is not the people that I love and the community that we've cultivated and these are just weirdos. Like, they're just it's like a whole different fandom that is
Yeah.
interested, it's like completely separate.
It's like a fandom for hating the
Yeah.
thing that they claim to be a fan of. Then that's what I was saying. Where it was almost funny, where the guy was like, "Oh, I watch all the Star Wars things. I don't like them." I'm like, "Oh, well, close enough." There are people who call themselves Star Wars fans who have the same attitude. Um, and so it almost feels like the kind of communities that we're in and that we've cultivated are such a separate thing from that.
Mhm.
And that there's also just a basic level of respect of understanding like something that I relate to and that I love might not be universally loved, and that I can love my thing and know that some people don't love it. And I can see that there's something that someone else loves that might not resonate with me, and I don't have to be a raging asshole about it. There's it's so easy to shut up and not be a dick. It's so easy. It's so
Yup.
easy,
Mhm.
you know?
Y-
Um
Yeah.
and just to listen also. I mean, it's not always easy to listen, but for me, when I was watching the Acolyte, I was like, "Oh, I don't love it." But then I went online and I saw people having conversations about why it was so meaningful to them, and I was like, "Well, this is exactly how I feel about something else." And I was able to then watch it with a new appreciation, and even though it didn't resonate for me, I was like, "This is so important for so
Mhm.
many other people." And even though I didn't necessarily love the project itself or love all the aspects, or I had my own kind of issues, or it just didn't necessarily resonate super deeply with me, I was able to watch it and have so much appreciation for it as a work of art and as like an impact on the community, because I knew it was going to be positive for other people, and I was able to like it in that sense. And I think that that's
Mhm.
something important when we think about representation, is that while something might not represent me, it represents someone else, and that is equally important.
No, yeah, I feel like I have so many like thoughts swirling in my head that it just reminds me of, and I know like we're talking about our personal experience with feeling represented in media, but like I just think back to the videos of those little girls who finally get when The Little Mermaid had come
Yes.
out, and there's
Mhm.
little
Yes.
girls with such joy to see
Yes.
a Disney princess that looks like them. And I don't understand how people could feel anything other than pure joy for seeing how happy it makes somebody else. It just does not register in my
Yeah.
brain how that can possibly be offensive to
And
you
be
just
upsetting,
because you
yeah.
don't relate to it. And that's like, I don't know. That's why it matters so much. I know, like, God, it's so frustrating to deal with. And I kind of want to talk about we have a great, wonderful, supportive community, I think, overall, minus, certain groups of fans. But besides them, I just kind of want to talk about, like, sometimes I see a lot of, like, and this is why I get defensive over a lot of the characters that I specifically relate to. And sometimes it can be ableism, even though that's not anyone's intention. Um, when I see criticism of a character, I because I relate to somebody so deeply, I get very defensive because I'm like, you're not looking at the nuance of I feel like you're not looking at the nuance of the situation. And obviously, like, your disability, your mental health, whatever, is not always an excuse, but an explanation, and there is some sort of, like, personal responsibility. But just I don't know why I'm adding all these disclaimers. I love Star-Lord.
Okay, yeah.
I love Star-Lord so much, and I was so deeply offended with the number of people that just completely blamed him for everything as if it was not Thanos' doing.
Yup.
I am
Because you would have done the same thing if you were in his position. If you just found out that the love of your life is dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, not to get personal and deep here, because that's what we've been doing.
I think we've already done.
I think we've already done that. I have suffered a lot of loss and a lot of trauma in my life and grief. And so there are characters who have also experienced those things that I relate very deeply to, and Star-Lord is one of them, because we are both members of the Dead Mom from Cancer Club and cope with our trauma with humor. And when you experience, like, loss of that level in your life, and this is why I relate to characters like Abby Anderson and Ellie from The Last of Us. Everybody drink. I'm talking about The Last of Us.
I was wondering if we were gonna go the whole episode without you mentioning The Last of Us, and we did not do it.
And characters and even Joel, characters that get ridiculed for the decisions that they make, but it's like, as a result of their trauma, are they good decisions? Not always. You can't, but you can explain why, and you can have empathy for those characters and understand why they've made those decisions that they have. And so that's why I get so, like, deeply frustrated when I see criticisms. And I'm thinking now of in the Baldur's Gate 3 fandom. I love that game. There are a few characters in that game that are very neurodivergent coded. And a lot of the criticisms that I see from those specific characters or about those specific characters are straight up ableism. Like, I love Gale. Gale is very autistic coded. He loves to yap. He loves to info dump. He is very straightforward with the things that he says and his feelings. His mood can change on a dime depending on how what you say to him. And I see so many people hating on him, and I'm like, those are all very neurodivergent things. And the neurodivergent people in your life are seeing those criticisms that you're making and internalizing that, and we're seeing it. And I think, I don't know, I see it from, even, like, the good side of the fandom will often not stop to think about their criticism. And I'm not saying you have to like the character. I'm not saying you have to like everyone, but it's just a matter of, like, the way that you talk about it sometimes. Right? It's just think about what you say and how it might affect someone that might feel differently or connect to that character.
Yeah. Or even thinking about like, why don't I like this? Because I think what you were saying, and in I think different spaces and with different characters, a lot of the times people will be like, well, I don't like this character. And it's like, okay, well, why don't you like them? It's like, well, XYZ. And it's like, okay, you said that you don't like them because of neurodivergent traits, or you said that you don't like them because of XYZ disability. You didn't say that, and you weren't saying, I don't like them because they're disabled. But all the reasons you gave are like presentations of a disability or of something like that. Or with characters who are very queer coded, sometimes people will be like, well, I don't like them because of XYZ behavior. I'm like,
interesting.
I think we saw this a bit with the Bad Batch of people who didn't like Tech. Just being like, well, I don't like him because of X, Y, like, and the reasons they give him. Like, it sounds like you just don't like autistic people. And that's maybe not something that you want to be saying on the internet to your audience. And
and I could go on for hours
Yeah.
about the manic pixie dream girl type. And men, not to call you out, love the manic pixie dream girl. But as soon as you say, oh, you just mean that she's autistic. Wait, I didn't say. What do you mean? No, she's not. She's not autistic because XYZ, because there's still such a
she's
stigma
hot, and so
as seeing,
she can't be
yes,
autistic.
she's hot, she can't be autistic. And it's so frustrating that it's like, as soon as you attach some sort of label to a character, even if it's like, oh, well, that's not canon, they never said it. Okay, but that doesn't mean that the like we said, everything that's written in fiction comes from some sort of realist, like from some experience of someone who lives in our real world and a real life experience. And that's how it's shaped, that's how they're written. And sure, you can say, I don't see that character that way. That's fine. Everyone is entitled to their own feelings about it. But as soon as you have a visceral reaction to that, it's like, so you only like the character as a means to what they can do for you, or what they do for you because they're attractive or whatever. And as soon as it is, someone else likes them for a different reason, nope, can't have that.
No, that's Oh, I was just going to say, that's kind of why I took up the defense of Yord so much, because Yord is very, like, type A, very, like, not my flavor of autism, but there is definitely a flavor of autism that looks like Yord, intense rule follower, have to do things my way, very straightforward and direct, I guess. And anytime I saw some discourse about Yord, I would be like, I know so many Yords, and I just, it makes me it makes me feel weird when we're talking about especially live action characters. This can apply to anybody, but especially live action characters that are played with intention by the character, like, all the facial acting and things that go into live action characters. Like, it's easier for me to visualize, like, those types of characters as real people because it's live action. And it's like, if you're so comfortable talking shit about this character because of the character's personality or their behaviors, and it's not like from a moral standpoint, they just irritate you that much, what are you saying about the people in your life who act like this? Because just the same as all fiction is informed by our reality, all portrayals of characters ever are informed by reality because they're inspired by real people.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if just as much, but similarly, as characters and stories are informed by real life, the way that we see real life is informed by the way that we see things being portrayed, mostly through the media now. And so I think that that's part of why accurate representation is so, so, so important. And I used to talk about this a lot about Jewish representation. The harmful stereotypes, even when they're not explicit, inform the way that we see real people. And I think now I talk about this more with disability representation. Harmful representation or lack of representation, or just speaking about people in dehumanizing ways, influences the way that we treat people and that we see people in real life. And so that can be this representation, like representation can be such a good and important thing when it's done well.
but it can be such a dangerous and harmful thing when it's done really poorly, because it does inform our worldview and how we see and treat people, which is why I try so hard to balance showing the really hard parts of disability, but then also showing good days and showing hope and being like, here's my wheelchair parked right here, and here's me out of my wheelchair spinning a lightsaber. Here's me when I got in a lightsaber duel at Disneyland, and then here's me 2 seconds afterwards nearly passed out on the ground. Because both of those things exist, and this is reality. It isn't this shiny inspiration porn, but it isn't this horrible thing that you should be ashamed of or that should be feared. And I think that something that people don't necessarily understand is that they can become disabled at any point.
Oh yeah.
And people will shit on disabled people endlessly, and I'm like, you're one wrong step away from becoming disabled. And I think that that's another issue with how disability is portrayed a lot of the time. I talk about it being shown as a moral failing, where I think that that's something that comes up in Star Wars a lot, which I've talked about, and people don't like when I talk about it, but it's true, is that characters' relationship to disability and how disabled they are. Historically, it's gotten better, I think, with the Bad Batch a lot, but historically, the portrayal of disability has kind of coincided with moral failing. Like with Vader, he continuously loses limbs as he veers farther towards the dark side, and even with Grievous. But I think that things like that, it kind of informs the way we perceive disabled people. If the only times we're seeing disability are with these evil characters who have ended up disabled because of some moral failing, how do we look at real life disabled people? It's your fault for being disabled. You did something wrong. There's something wrong with you personally.
Yeah.
You know? And then there's other funny things that, in kind of a positive way, I talk about Yoda sometimes as pretty damn good disability representation, where he kicks ass, he has a lightsaber fight, and then he goes and grabs his cane and has to take a little nap.
Yeah.
He's incredibly
Great
fatigued.
point.
And I think genuinely that might be kind of the closest to my experience that I can share with someone. And I've genuinely shown Yoda clips to people and been like, that's what my disability is genuinely like. I spin a lightsaber and I kick ass, and then I have to lay on the ground and like tape myself back together and use my cane afterwards. Like, I will stand up out of my wheelchair at Disneyland and spin a lightsaber, and then I'm gonna need to lay on the ground and recover. And so it's like, and people see that, and then they go, oh, I understand. I get it. And then they can have empathy. And like you guys were saying earlier, is then every time they interact with someone or they see someone like that, that's in the back of their mind and they have that understanding. And so authentic representation, both like with what we do and when people are talking about it online and in real life, but also in media, I think that's part of why it's so important, because it all circles back. Real people are creating these stories, and real life is influencing these stories, but then these stories and these characters are influencing how people see real life.
We should probably wrap up.
Yeah.
So we've been yapping for a while.
We have been.
I personally would love to do some rapid fire real quick.
Okay.
Yes, we always wrap up with some rapid fire questions and then a listener question, which we actually got one this time. So we can do it. Yeah.
So, are you ready, Poppy?
I am ready. Are they the ones that are on here?
Yes. First up is favorite Clone Wars arc.
Oh, okay. There are two that are coming right away. No, there are many. This is a hard question. I should have looked at this beforehand.
I just added them, so.
Okay. All right. I love, as much as it pains me, The Wrong Jedi. I love Ahsoka leaving the Order, because that arc has helped me accept so many things within my own life. The Bad Batch arc, and then the Mortis arc as well. I hated that the first time I watched it, but I think it was because I was like 12 and didn't really understand what was happening, and I also had it on in the background while I was doing homework. But I've come to love it so much. That one. So I think those are my favorites. I'll probably change my answer if I think about it for more than half a second, but
okay.
This is rapid fire. Yeah.
It is rapid fire. Okay. Brooke, you wanted to get the next one?
Yes. Your favorite theme park?
Oh, okay. I've only been to Universal and Disneyland, although I went to Disney World when I was like 3 and I don't remember it. I also, I love, all right. I don't want to like group California Adventure with Disneyland, because I feel like those are separate, but then I feel like I can't separate them. but I've also like almost died from Disney food multiple times. So I feel like I have a hard time crediting them. Yeah, I have like a running list of like times I've gone to Disneyland versus times I've been hospitalized. And it's like it's a bad ratio.
This
about
remains
50-50 at this point.
wow. This remains the best
Yeah.
rapid fire question, and that's why we use it so often.
Yeah. And also with the DOS changes, Disneyland. I'm looking at you guys. Not very nice. No, but I'd have to go with Disneyland. I go there for my birthday every year. I love it
Yep.
so much. I get to go and I get to be odd and I get to be a little odd guy who likes seeing my favorite characters, and that's just normal. Like I saw a TikTok the other day where someone, or maybe it was on Reels. It was one of my mutuals and I'm not remembering who it was right now. But they made a video being like when people are judgy about like you having fun with character interactions, and it was the Chapel Roan thing with the, like, you're not fun. It's like that. And it's like I get to go and I get to be silly and I get to hang out with my favorite characters, and that's the best thing ever. I love it.
Yeah, and I think
but not that. But
I think Disneyland allows that opportunity and that like
yeah,
weirdness, like embracing the weirdness, like more because the character interactions at Disney World are not nearly as open, and just because
interesting.
there's a higher volume of people that go
Okay,
there,
yeah.
so there's characters don't walk around with like just kind of without a handler. They
Oh wow,
have a
seriously?
handler, and yeah,
That's
it's a very different vibe.
okay.
So yeah, I would definitely agree. That's one of the really great things about Disneyland.
And I think yeah. Oh sorry.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I have a couple friends who work there at Disney also, and just I think most of the cast members that I've met there have been just so incredible and so committed to making it such a special experience. And I have so many
Mhm.
stories I could tell about that, but I don't want to be like happiest place on earth, but like yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
it is.
I'm part of the reason I'm moving down there so I can go there all the time. But yeah.
Valid.
Love.
I'm gonna be there for like I'm going to LA Comic Con, and I
Oh,
will yeah.
I was
Um
supposed to go, but now I'm not, and I'm like,
no.
oh. And now like all of
Um
my mutuals are like, I'm gonna get LA Comic Con. I'm like, oh my gosh, no. I'm
I'm
like,
doing a
would
panel
that mean?
there, and
Oh,
so
that's so cool.
yeah. Uh we're contemplating whether or not we're gonna splurge
Okay.
on Oogie Boogie Bash.
Oh,
Because
that could be fun.
yeah, but anyway, this is supposed to be rapid fire.
Yes, I'm sorry.
And then
I'm
our
not very
final
rapid fire.
question for you is your top 3 X-Men.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god. Okay. Oh no, my camera's zooming all over. Hi.
I thought top 3
Hello?
would give you a nice buffer.
Yeah. Okay. The X-Men adjacent honorable mention: Deadpool, Pookie Bear, Baby Girl, for real. I'm just like internet language garbling. I love Rogue. She was kind of my first intro to X-Men was like the first X-Men movie, and I loved her in that, and I've loved her ever since. I love Jean Grey. I feel like these are all very basic answers. And then I like Archangel as well. Gotta love a good dose of religious trauma. That's always fun to throw in there. And then also honorable mention Wolverine. I've been saying the past couple days I'm like Wolverine if instead of like a 200-year-old man with like anger issues and drinking problem, he was like a teenage girl.
He kind of is a teenage girl.
He kind of is. He's just like me for real. If he was a cutie patootie, if he was like instead of like a buff man, he was like a cutie patootie. I'm like,
can I just say I love that Hugh Jackman is having his like boyfriend of the month,
era.
white boy of the month era. And I know, yeah, I know that. But I know that everyone is like, oh my god, Hugh Jackman, Wolverine shirtless, blah blah blah. My brain went to I am so attracted to a man that covers up his entire body and I don't even see as much of an ankle.
Do you happen to be a Mandalorian fan?
You mean the love of my life? Question.
That's a clip. That's a clip.
Kicking feces, twirling hair. Wait.
Yeah, no, literally. I have a shrine to Boba Fett up here, and I also just love Din Djarin. He's the love of my life. Don't ask me.
That read was insane.
Don't ask me how many times I've read Rough Day. It's too many times. But anyway, Teehee. I also love I think this fits into this category because I think that he is like the less capable, dumber DC equivalent of Deadpool, but I love Vigilante from Peacemaker. But he has like very big Deadpool vibes.
Okay. I haven't gotten into any DC stuff, and I feel like I should, but I feel like it's a rabbit hole that if I go down, I don't have space in my room for like one more baby girl shrine.
That's so valid.
The whole room is baby girl shrine at this point. The ceiling has started receiving posters, and my mother's not happy about that. She's like, "No, you can't start putting things on the ceiling. It's enough." I'm like, "No."
That's so. Oh, another random tangent, because we were talking about how like, oh, you know, you like, I can't relate to this character because it's a woman or blah blah blah. I have been relating to middle-aged old men my entire life because of their trauma. I just remembered Daryl Dixon and how he is also baby girl because he's so traumatized and same.
Like, that's so me. I'm not going to tell you why, but like if you know, you know.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. Yep.
Yeah.
And
just to throw in one last thing, another character I forgot that I was going to talk about was Daredevil. I had an insane Daredevil arc. If you know, you know. But I think
we didn't even talk about Daredevil. Talk about disabled characters.
Oh my gosh, I think that I relate to him because I'm disabled and my life is a little bit of a shit show, and I'm constantly just covered in bumps and bruises because I walk into stuff a lot. Not the same disability as him. I'm just wildly uncoordinated and I bruise easily.
Sprinkle a little religious trauma in there, you know.
That as well. Yeah, no, I was showing my friends again with when Charlie Cox was at Disneyland, I guess, recently, and one of my friends was working and saw him, and I was like, you guys do not know, you guys were not there for the Daredevil phase. I had a Daredevil Funko Pop that I brought with me every day to high school with me and had with me all the time,
dude,
for like multiple months. And that was just a thing that happened, and I can't believe that I was not bullied for that. There were plenty of other things that I was made fun of. For some reason, that wasn't it. For some reason, that was fine. Although I'm sure at that point they were just like, that this is probably the most normal thing she's done recently.
I was at New York Comic Con last year when that bitch showed up dressed like Bluey.
Yeah!
And I didn't see him.
Oh my gosh.
Until I saw it on Twitter afterwards, and I'm so upset. I probably walked right by him and I didn't even fucking know.
Funny. Oh my gosh. You know the picture of him with like the cookie of his face?
Yes.
That picture?
Yeah,
I recently found out that cookie is from this like little Jewish deli and restaurant that I grew up going to.
Oh, no way.
And they make those cookies and they bring them to like the conventions. And I just recently found that out because they had a picture of him on the wall and I was like, wait, hold on.
That's awesome.
Like, oh my gosh. So
that's so funny.
You best believe that I am planning a Disneyland trip when the Daredevil show comes out, because if they put him in Avengers Campus, I will ascend.
Yeah.
I will ascend to godhood.
I'll always say the most like insane thing and then follow it up by being like, but in the most normal way possible. And recently I've dropped that and I've just gone with in the most abnormal, insane, off-putting, batshit crazy way possible, actually, because I'm not even going to try to pretend to be normal about it at this point. And I think honestly, the thing with fandom, just to wrap this all up and everything, is like one of my friends and we have this running joke. I think Isabella Amidala had posted it. The like, is some Babu gonna match my frick? And that's just our thing we say all the time now. We're like, my Babu has been fricked. I have found someone to Babu my frick.
That's
Babu
so
frick,
funny.
Savior, yeah. Find someone who will match your freak. Find someone who will Babu your frick. And fandom and community is a space for that. And you can say that and have people not be like, that is abnormal and odd. But have people like, oh my gosh, that's so real. That's so funny. Babu has been fricked. Like that.
That's so funny. I love that.
It sounds insane, but it's that's what I think that's what fandom is about.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That at its core, it sounds funny and it sounds silly, but that's what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, to wrap the episode up, the last thing that we have, if you've stuck with us this long, thank you all for yapping with us. We love to end our episodes when we get listener questions with a listener question. And this listener question comes from our dear friend, Brooke, Ocean Philly, from Twitter and all the places that we had on our show a couple weeks ago. And she wants to know what everyone's favorite Star Wars meme is.
Oh my god. See, I've had time to think about this for several hours now, and I still don't know if I have an answer.
I have like a lot of reaction pictures saved. I don't know if one of those would count. I'm trying to pull them up on Pinterest right now because I feel like those might. I like Soup Clone a lot for Bad Batch. I like Soup Clone.
I love a
feel
good Grogu meme.
Yeah.
I have so many memes saved of just like Grogu like being thrown and he's just like mid or that and Din Djarin like mid fall because he falls so much. That little klutzy bitch. He's so me.
Yeah.
I will say my favorite meme, Star Wars meme of all time, is it's Obi-Wan from A New Hope, and he says, "I don't seem to remember ever owning a droid," and then it's a picture of R4 from Obi-Wan's ship in the prequels, and it just says like, "Am I a joke to you?" And I love it. It's so funny to me.
I don't know if it's a meme or a joke, but I like Are Your Scopes Jedi Issue, Sir. I like that one. That one's funny. That took me an embarrassingly long time to understand that, but I was also like not fully child, but I was like child adjacent when I saw the Clone Wars for the first time, so I'll give myself a pass on that one. And then I think I also it's not, I don't know if it's a meme, but it's my own little meme now with my friends is Simbabu gonna match my frick?
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah. I don't know if anything will ever.
I will be adopting that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Whew. All right, folks.
Yeah.
Well, we did it. We made it to the end.
We've yapped. We have yapped.
Yes. We did it.
Thank you guys so much for having me on here. This was so much fun. And
Thank you for being on. Could you tell everyone real quick where they can find you?
Okay. I am on TikTok, I am on Instagram, and I'm now on Threads. And in the future, I'll be on YouTube. Keep an eye out for that. It's the same username. It's poppy.skywalker. The O in Poppy is a 0. I made that username when I was like 13 because I didn't want people to actually find me. And I'm realizing now that I probably should have made it easier to find because now people are like, oh, I'm looking it up and it's not coming up. I'm like, because it's a 0. And I made it hard to find on accident. It wasn't the best choice, but it's Poppy with a 0 for the O, P0PPY dot Skywalker, and that's on TikTok. Yeah, TikTok, Instagram, Threads now, and YouTube coming soon. Hopefully, that's where I am. I'll say what I do. I do lightsaber videos. I do lore videos. I do a lot of Ahsoka stuff. I'm doing Marvel stuff again now. I'm doing cosplay. I've been doing more of that, which I'm really excited about. And then I do yapping as well, and I do disability advocacy. That's something that I'm getting more comfortable talking more openly about because I was nervous for a long time that it would be off-putting to people, but those aren't really if people are going to be off-put by that, those aren't really the people I want in my community anyway. So I'm doing more of that again, and just general yapping. I do a good yap. That's me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, that wasn't you. That
good.
was me. That was my brain going.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know how to close this. I'm like, and that's me. And we yapped about things, and we said there were words that happened, and we said things, and that's me. I'm like,
and hopefully people liked the words that we said.
Yes.
So, yeah. But thanks so much for being here.
Thank you guys.
And thanks. Yeah. Thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and or follow, and we will yap with you next time.
Yippee.